Thank you so much, Vikas. And first, I'd like to give my solidarity to all the speakers, particularly to Zahra. I'm sure we all were extremely moved by her presentation. And we in Pakistan see what's happening in Afghanistan with a lot of concern, primarily because of the negative role played by the Pakistani state in the region. And we really, as peace activists and human rights activists, we can only offer solidarity to our comrades in Afghanistan who are fighting against extremism in a very difficult situation, and hold our own government accountable to make women's rights and rights of minorities a precondition for any kind of dialogue with any future Afghan government. In terms of what's happening in Pakistan, I think the story is similar to what's happening across the region. One of the things I think is very scary for us as South Asians is that the idea of South Asia, the way it's being presented today, is one of fear, of insecurity, of enmity. For example, a place like Pakistan looks at its own neighbors in a very tense way. So I just mentioned Afghanistan, where Pakistan has had fantasies to control the country for almost 40, 50 years now. Similarly, both the Indian and the Pakistani states, they look at each other as the necessary devil that justifies militarization, that justifies quelling of internal dissent. So it's almost like there's a secret kind of bond between the ruling elites of India and Pakistan, because they require each other for sustaining themselves. Also, I think it's pertinent to mention, because it's the 50th anniversary of independence of Bangladesh, that Pakistan is also witnessing this immense erasure of history. Over the last 10, 15 years, after a silence over Bangladesh, people had begun asking inconvenient questions about what had happened, and a lot of politicians started apologizing, or at least acknowledging the crimes committed by the Pakistani state in Bengal. I think what has happened over the past 2-3 years is a reversal of that entire memory, that slow kind of steeping in of the truth. And this year particularly, there was extreme propaganda done by the Pakistani state to posit the Bengali liberation movement as an Indian conspiracy, to show that all of this was the fault of a few intelligence operatives, and that actually East Pakistanis wanted to live with Pakistan. And this did not just happen on Twitter; it also happened in the mainstream media and in academic conferences. One example is a new movie that just came out, which showed that 71 was simply a conspiracy. And to reduce that entire bloody conflict to a kind of a footnote of like a battle between intelligence agencies is a rewriting of history, which has severe implications that I will talk about in a minute. And another thing that recently happened regarding the same issue was a conference at LUMS in Lahore, where academics from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh wanted to discuss the war and what had happened, and have an honest discussion. And this was a Zoom conference. The establishment, and particularly the secret agencies in Pakistan, intervened with threats to actually cancel the conference. I mean, academics have never really changed the world. In my opinion, I'm an academic, so I'm saying it. But just imagine the kind of fragility of the state, which is so scared of debating anything that may contradict its own narrative of history. And I'll end by saying that this kind of contradiction, this kind of fear, paranoia that we're seeing around neighbors, around others, around history, is symptomatic of kind of this admission by the ruling elites that they are unable to control their populations internally, that they're unable to satisfy their populations, and they must constantly have enemies around, both external and internal. It's India, it could be Bangladesh, it could be Afghanistan. For other countries, it could be other countries. But I think what is kind of similar across the board is the manufacturing of phantoms, manufacturing of enemies, of ghosts that justify repression of dissidents. And we've seen this here in Pakistan. I mean, we've been charged with sedition for protesting for student rights. People have been accused of blasphemy for speaking for women's rights. People have been picked up from their homes for demanding constitutional rights or student unions. I mean, it's the attack is not on external forces. The attack is primarily to discipline internal dissidents. And the question for us is, if so much of the unconscious of our states today is geared towards war, the infrastructure and the language that they're creating is one of war, then the prospects of democracy are very bleak in our region. And the only way we can fight it is by protecting life, by asserting our common humanity, the common destiny of the South Asian people. It's not simply a metaphor of feel-good thing. It's actually something that has a very concrete reality, because this hatred is being used to target us. And if there are better relations between Pakistanis and Bangladeshis and Indians and Afghans, if there's honesty between all of us and we gear towards truth, I think it will help democratic movements within these countries who are accused of being, foreign agents. And I would end by this statement. I think it's interesting how everybody who's a decent person in Pakistan is accused of being an Indian agent and a traitor. Everybody who's a decent person in India is being accused of being a Pakistani or ISI agent. I'm assuming the story is similar for other countries. And I think it's time that the traitors of South Asia unite and really boldly say that we do not stand for this, these phony wars, this violence that's being done in the name of our brothers and sisters, of this attempt to present our common heritage as some kind of a threat to our national security. I don't think it is. I think it's being done for the financial security of a few elites. This is not national security, and the only way we can be secure is through peace, solidarity, and love. Thank you.